Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Um, I'm not sure I have a title for my talk. Poor Jed. I don't know if he ever got the title for my last talk. So I'm going to speak from Old Path, White Clouds. This is a biography of the Buddha by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I think the last copy of this I gave away, but I don't, where I sold it, I don't remember. And then I was talking to the man who's the director of the agency I work for. I did. And he was talking about his daughter's trip to India, his accompanying her, meeting her there. And I thought about if I were to go to India, which I'm not, I will die probably before I ever get to India. The only reason I'd go would be to see the birthplace of the Buddha, to see the various places where the Buddha taught, Varanasi, Jeddah Grove, those sorts of places. And then I just thought, I'm going to get the book. Why not? So I got the book, and a lot of my talk I'm going to be reading from the book, to be quite honest with you, because I can't put it any better than Thich Nhat Hanh puts it. But I want to start out by saying that, as Steve Hagen says over and over again, the Buddha said, what I teach, what I only teach, awareness is what I only teach. That is my teaching, awareness. I had the right wording this morning. It's not coming to mind now, but basically the Buddha said, if I could sum up my teaching in one word, it would be awareness. That's fair enough, huh? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the actual waking up of the Buddha as described by Thich Nhat Hanh. Right before, the Buddha was practicing. This is the historical Buddha, Gautama Buddha. He was known as Siddhartha before he became Gautama. Buddha just means the awakened one. And he was practicing asceticism, which was the practice of the day. And he had teachers, and he was very diligent in following what they were teaching, and to the point where he literally endangered his health. But I want to read to you what Thich Nhat Hanh says about his realization of the foolishness of practicing asceticism. And then one day, while practicing sitting meditation in a cemetery, Siddhartha realized with a jolt how wrong the practice of self-mortification was. The sun had set, and a cool breeze gently caressed his skin. After sitting all day beneath the blazing sun, the breeze was delightfully refreshing, and Siddhartha experienced an ease in his mind unlike anything he had felt during the day. He realized that body and mind formed one reality, which could not be separated. The peace and comfort of the body were directly related to the peace and comfort of the mind. To abuse the body was to abuse the mind. He remembered the first time he sat in meditation when he was 9 years old, beneath the cool shade of a rose apple tree on the day of the year's first plowing. He remembered how the refreshing ease of that sitting had brought him a sense of clarity and calm. And then he thinks back to the first days with Master Alara Kalama, his teacher. Those initial sessions of meditation with this master had nourished both body and mind, creating in him a deep ability to concentrate and focus. But after that, Master Alara Kalama had told him to transcend the joys of meditation in order to attain to states that existed beyond the material world, states such as the realms of limitless space and limitless consciousness, and the state of no materiality. Later, there had been the state of neither perception nor non-perception. And this is key to the Buddha's disillusionment with this practice. Always the goal had been to find a means to escape the world of feeling and thought, the world of sensation and perception. He asked himself, why follow only the traditions laid down in Scripture? Why fear the joyful ease that meditation brings? Such joys have nothing in common with the 5 categories of desire which obscure awareness. To the contrary, the joys of meditation can nourish body and mind and provide the strength needed to pursue the path to enlightenment. The monk Gautama resolved to regain his health and to use his meditation to nourish both body and mind. At this point, I want to say that what the Buddha had realized was that he was rejecting immediate, direct experience in favor of some other state of mind that his master, Alara Kalama, had taught him to seek. And he saw the foolishness of this. He saw that it did not bring peace. It did not bring joy. He reflected on the joys of meditation he had experienced to this point and decided to return to that practice that he had enjoyed as a child as well. I find that very interesting. Steve has talked about his experiences meditating as a child and his recollection of those experiences. So anyway, he awakes the next morning after falling asleep on the ground. But he notices he's covered with dirt and dust, and his robe was so tattered and threadbare, it no longer covered his body. He remembered seeing a corpse in the cemetery the day before, and he guessed that today or tomorrow people would lift it down to the river to perform the cremation ceremony. And the brick-colored cloth that covered it would no longer be needed. He approached the corpse and respectfully and reflecting quietly on birth and death, respectfully removed the cloth from the body. The corpse was that of a young woman, her body swollen and discolored. Siddhartha would use the brick-colored cloth as a new robe. So he bathes himself. The water was cool, and he finds it overwhelmingly refreshing. He took a long time bathing, and then he scrubbed and wrung out his new robe. But as he went to climb out of the water, his strength failed him. He did not have enough energy to pull himself onto the bank. So he stood quietly, breathed calmly, saw a tree branch leaning over the water, and walked towards it slowly and grabbed onto it to support himself. He climbed out. He wrapped himself in the cloth that he scrubbed in the river, and it had dried. And then he set out walking for a village, Uruvela. But even before he had walked halfway, his strength failed him and he collapsed. He lay unconscious. Now, some of you may have heard this story. because I think this story is in Hidden Lamp. He lay unconscious for some time before a young girl from the village appeared. 13-year-old Sujata had been sent by her mother to carry rice milk, cakes, and lotus seeds to offer to the forest gods. When she saw the monk lying unconscious on the road, barely breathing, she knelt down and placed a bowl of milk to his lips. She knew he was an ascetic who had fainted from weakness. When the drops of milk moistened his tongue and throat, Siddhartha responded immediately. He could taste how refreshing the milk was, and he slowly drank the entire bowl full. After a few dozen breaths, he was revived enough to sit up, and he motioned Sujata to pour him another bowlful of milk. It was remarkable how quickly the milk restored his strength. That day, he decided to abandon austerity practice and go to the cool forest across the river to practice there. So the days go on. He gradually begins to eat and drink normally. Sometimes Sujata brought him food. Sometimes he took his bowl to the village to beg. Every day he practiced walking meditation along the riverbank, and the rest of the time he devoted to sitting meditation. Every evening he bathed in the Naranjara River. He abandoned, I think this is very important, he abandoned all reliance on tradition and scripture in order to find the way on his own. He returned to himself to learn from his own successes and failures. I feel like this is a very important understanding, a very important statement. He learned to trust himself and his immediate direct experience. Not just the pain, not just the weakness, but the joy of drinking the milk, of being refreshed, of accepting the gift from Sujata. And I suspect he returned to himself to learn from his own successes and failures without judgment. Very important. I don't think we can learn from our successes and failures if we judge ourselves, if we punish ourselves mentally for having failures, or we praise ourselves for having successes. I think he learned quickly how to nourish himself by learning from his own successes and failures. Never gonna get through this. Okay. He did not hesitate to let meditation nourish his mind and body, and a sense of peace and ease grew within him. He did not distance himself or try to escape his feelings and perceptions, but maintained mindfulness in order to observe them as they arose. We know this practice. We do this all the time. We notice our feelings and perceptions, and we maintain mindfulness in order to observe them as they arise. This is our practice. He abandoned the desire to escape from the world of phenomena. And as he returned to himself, he found he was completely present in the world. of phenomena. One breath, one bird's song, one leaf, one ray of sunlight. Any of these might serve as his subject of meditation. He began to see that the key to liberation, total, complete freedom, lay in each breath, each step, each small pebble along the path. The monk Gautama went from meditating on his body to meditating on his feelings, and from meditating on his feelings to meditating on his perceptions, including all the thoughts which arose and fell in his own mind. He saw the oneness of body and mind, that each and every cell of the body contained all the wisdom of the universe. He saw that he needed only to look deeply into a speck of dust to see the face of the entire universe, that a speck of dust was itself the universe, and if it did not exist, the universe could not exist either. The monk Gautama went beyond the idea of separate self, of Atman, and with a start realized that he had long been dominated by a false view of Atman as expressed in the Vedas. The Vedas were sacred Hindu texts. That's all I know of the Vedas. In reality, all things were without a separate self. Not self or anatan atman was the nature of all existence. Anatman was not a term to describe some new entity. It was a thunderbolt that destroyed all wrong views. Now this is interesting. I'm not sure how I would reword this, but just listen carefully. Don't take it too literally. Taking hold of non-self, which I'm not sure you can do. Siddhartha was like a general raising his sharp sword of insight on the battlefield of meditation practice. Day and night, he sat beneath the pipala tree as new levels of awareness awoke in him like bright flashes of lightning. In the meantime, the other ascetics with whom he had been practicing noticed he was no longer practicing asceticism and decided just to leave. So they did. And only after they had left did he notice their absence. Siddhartha had devoted all his time to meditation and had not yet taken the time to explain this to his friends. He thought, my friends have misunderstood me, but I can't worry now about convincing them otherwise. I must devote myself to finding the true path. Once I have found it, I will share it with them. And during those days, he's visited by children. One of them is the buffalo child who takes care of a herd of buffalo. His name is Savasti. And Savasti would bring him handfuls of fresh grass, which Siddhartha Gautama Buddha accepted gratefully. And later, I'm not sure I'm going to get to this. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get to this. The children come to him and he enjoys teaching them. But I am going to read a part that he teaches them. And then he questions them about his teaching. But first, I want to read something else. He focuses on body, mind, and breath. The hermit Gautama focused all of his formidable powers of concentration to look deeply at his body. He saw that each cell of his body was like a drop of water in an endlessly flowing river of birth, existence, and death, and he could not find anything in the body. He could not find anything in the body that remained unchanged or that could be said to contain a separate self. With his great concentration, Gautama next explored the river of perceptions, which flowed alongside the rivers of body and feelings. The drops in the river of perceptions intermingled and influenced each other. If one's perceptions were accurate, reality revealed itself with ease. But if one's perceptions were erroneous, reality was veiled. People were caught in endless suffering because of their erroneous perceptions. They believed that which is impermanent is permanent. They believed that which is self, that which is without self, contains self. That which has no birth and no death has birth and death. And they divided that which is inseparable into parts. Gautama next shone his awareness on the mental states which were the sources of suffering: fear, anger, hatred, arrogance, jealousy, greed, ignorance. Like all of us, he was no stranger to these. Mindful awareness blazed in him like a bright sun. And he used that sun of awareness to illuminate the nature of all these negative mental states. He saw that they all arose due to ignorance. They were the opposite of mindfulness. They were darkness, the absence of light. He saw that the key to liberation would be to break through ignorance and to enter deeply into the heart of reality and experience it directly. Such knowledge would not be the knowledge of the intellect, but of direct experience. In the past, Siddhartha had looked for ways to vanquish fear, anger, and greed, but the methods he had used had not borne fruit because they were only attempts to suppress such feelings and emotions. Siddhartha now understood that their cause was ignorance. That their cause was ignorance. And that when one was liberated from ignorance, mental obstructions would vanish on their own. He smiled and looked up at a pipala leaf imprinted against the blue sky, its tail blowing back and forth as if calling him. Looking deeply at the leaf, he saw clearly the presence of the sun and stars. Without the sun, without light and warmth, the leaf could not exist. This was like this because that was like that. He also saw in the leaf the presence of clouds. Without clouds, there would be no rain, and without rain, the leaf could not be. He saw the earth, time, space, and mind all were present in the leaf. In fact, at that very moment, The entire universe existed in that leaf. The reality of the leaf was a wondrous miracle. Though we ordinarily think that a leaf is born in the springtime, Gautama could see that it had been there for a long, long time in the sunlight, the clouds, the tree, and in himself. Seeing that the leaf had never been born, he could see too that he had never been born. Both the leaf and he had simply manifested. They had never been born and were incapable of ever dying. With this insight, ideas of birth and death, appearance and disappearance dissolved, and the true face of the leaf and his own true face revealed themselves. He could see the presence of any one phenomenon made possible the existence of all other phenomena, or really the manifestation of all other phenomena. One included all, and all were contained in one. The leaf and his body were one. Neither possessed a separate, permanent self. Neither could exist independently from the rest of the universe. Seeing the interdependent nature of all phenomena, Siddhartha saw the empty nature of all phenomena, that all things are empty of a separate, isolated self. He realized that the key to liberation lay in these two principles of interdependence and non-self. This goes on. Illuminating the rivers of his body, feelings and perceptions, mental formations and consciousness. These are the five skandhas expressed the way he expresses them: form, sensation, conception, inclination. In some schemes, it's known as consciousness. Here we call it perception. Siddhartha now understood that impermanence and emptiness of self are the very conditions necessary for life. If a grain of rice did not have the nature of impermanence and emptiness of self, it could not grow into a rice plant. If clouds were not empty of self and impermanent, they could not transform into rain. Without an impermanent, non-self nature, a child could never grow into an adult. Thus, he thought, to accept life means to accept impermanence and emptiness of self. The source of suffering is a false belief, impermanence, in permanence, and the existence of separate self. Seeing this, one understands that there is neither birth nor death, production nor destruction, one nor many, inner nor outer, large nor small, impure nor pure, no duality. All such concepts are false distinctions created by the intellect. So he talks about, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how he continues to meditate. His co-practitioners were now the forest, the river, the birds, and the thousands of insects living on the earth and in the trees. The great papala tree was his brother in practice. The evening star was also his brother in practice. This goes on. I wanted to read one more thing as he meditates on the last, in the third watch of the night as he's meditating on body, mind, and body, breath, and mind. He's meditating on breath, and there's a rhythm to this. It's like breathing. Gautama entered even more deeply into meditation. He saw how countless worlds arose and fell, were created and destroyed. He saw how countless beings passed through countless births and deaths. He saw that these births and deaths were but outward appearances and not true reality, just as millions of waves rise and fall incessantly on the surface of the sea, while the sea itself is beyond birth and death. If the waves understood that they themselves were water, they would transcend birth and death and arrive at true inner peace, overcoming all fear. It starts to rain on Gautama. Thunder crashes and great bolts of lightning flash across the sky. Rain pours down and he's soaking wet, but he did not budge. He continues his meditation. I'm going to run out of time. He saw that he shines his awareness on his mind. He saw that living beings suffer because they do not understand that they share one common ground with all beings. Ignorance gives rise to a multitude of sorrows, confusions, and troubles. Greed, anger, arrogance, doubt, jealousy, and fear all have their roots in ignorance. When we learn to calm our minds, to look deeply at the true nature of things, we can arrive at full understanding, which dissolves every sorrow and anxiety and gives rise to acceptance and love. Gautama now saw that understanding and love are one. Without understanding, there can be no love. Each person's disposition is the result of physical, emotional, and social conditions. When we understand this, we cannot hate even a person who behaves cruelly, but we can strive to help transform his physical, emotional, and social conditions. Understanding gives rise to compassion and love, which in turn give rise to correct action. In order to love, it is first necessary to understand. So understanding is the key to liberation. Practicing mindfulness strengthens the ability to look deeply. And when we look deeply into the heart of anything, it will reveal itself, and we can have confidence in that. This is the secret treasure of mindfulness. And then he goes into the Four Noble Truths. Life is illuminated by right view, right view, right intention, thank you. Right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. Siddhartha called this noble path Arya Marga. So this goes on, but I wanted to read you about his interaction with the children eating tangerines, and I don't have much time. They wanted to eat the tangerines in awareness in order to practice the very first lesson the Buddha had taught them. So Sujata, who had given him the milk, is there. Anyway, all right. Children, what does it mean to eat a tangerine? Well, he says, when you children peel a tangerine, you can eat it with awareness or without awareness. What does it mean to eat a tangerine in awareness? When you are eating the tangerine, you are aware that you are eating the tangerine. You fully experience its lovely fragrance and sweet taste. When you peel the tangerine, you know that you are peeling the tangerine. When you remove a slice and put it in your mouth, you know that you are removing a slice and putting it in your mouth. When you experience the lovely fragrance and sweet taste of the tangerine, you are aware that you are experiencing the lovely fragrance and sweet taste of the tangerine. The tangerine Nandabala, one of the children, offered me had 9 sections. I ate each morsel in awareness and saw how precious and wonderful it was. I did not forget the tangerine, and thus the tangerine became something very real to me. If the tangerine is real, the person eating it is real. This is what it means to eat a tangerine in awareness. Children, eating the tangerine in mindfulness means that while eating the tangerine, you are truly in touch with it. Your mind is not chasing after thoughts of yesterday or tomorrow, but is dwelling fully in the present moment. The tangerine is truly present. Living in mindful awareness means to live in the present moment, your body and mind, dwelling in the very here and now. And then I just want to read one more thing from the Dhammapada. I was going to read something else, but I don't have time. It's about heedfulness, about the teaching of awareness and the eating of the tangerine, and how the tangerine becomes real when you eat it with awareness. And in return, you become real as you eat it in awareness. And it says, chapter 2 of the Dhammapada, heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. The heedful die not, the heedless are as if dead already. Okay, I got to stop. I've gone 5 minutes over. Questions, comments, discussion? Yes, Haley.
I really like that line that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote
I'm
about.
sorry, what?
I really like that line that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote about how Siddhartha um, co-practitioners were the forest and the animals
Yes,
and the plants that were around him. You know, this is recency bias, but it reminds me of the section that we were talking about in the Dhammapada on Wednesday night.
yeah,
And I will very poorly paraphrase it, but that the fool goes off to seek refuge in a place,
yes,
a mountain, a
yes,
valley, a forest, that
yes,
sort of thing. But that's not really a refuge. And I think we often find ourselves placifying things and, thinking, oh, I'm going to go off to a park or something, and kind of making it this sort of, for lack of a better word, holy place. But really, it's just what's there in front of us and what's here with us, rather than a place or something else that's separate. It's the co-practitioner. It's right here with us at the same time.
yes,
So that line was just
yes.
very beautiful to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. The Buddha woke up to that. Yes, thank you. That was lovely. Thank you. John, this is John.
Yes, I do, Mayor. Um, it's hard. Okay, I practice mindfulness awareness all the time as I'm walking wherever I go. Practice on the bus, wherever. And it's hard to live this life judgmental and be. I try my best not to judge, and I try not to allow people. to get to me about, to judging me and what I like to do, my meditation and how my life has changed with recovery.
Yeah.
And yesterday I broke down because I ended up getting into it with my coworker and everything. And I broke down after I came from work. And I'm just happy to be here. And I'm happy to found this Zen meditation Dharma. It really have done a lot to my life and changed my life. And I'm continue be mindfulness and be aware of everything that I love it. I embrace it. And yeah, that's all.
So I also hear you saying you realized you had to let go of judgment of yourself. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Oh, yes, because I was unsure of myself. I ain't want to saying if I do this, will people accept me and I just let go of that. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? I try to, saying, let's go ahead and live my life the possibly, saying, as good as I can,
Sure.
because I'm not perfect, but not
None of us is.
worry about if they're gonna judge me because I'm this type of way of practicing mindfulness and whatever the case may be. So I'm still work in progress. So
Sure.
yes.
What you're talking about reminds me of how the Buddha was practicing with 5 other ascetics. And when he realized that he was abandoning immediate direct experience in favor of some other mental experience, and he decided he wasn't going to practice asceticism anymore, and he was going to practice mindful awareness and meditation. And he simply stopped associating with his 5 ascetic companions, and they noticed it, and then he noticed it. But when he noticed they left, he didn't judge himself. He said, I will come back to them. But right now, I have something to do. I have this to do. I have this practice to take up. And I kind of hear you saying that as well.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, it's like some people just don't understand what I'm doing. So it's like it's distance between them and me. But it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay, you know what I'm saying? It's something I can't control that. I can only control what I
Yes.
can do. And I'm gonna continue doing what I like doing, and it's this. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then I'm not gonna take it personal.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Peter.
Thanks, Mary. I enjoyed your talk. I love that book too. You said something about one of the things the Buddha said was this is like this because that is like that, which I've heard that quote before. Do you mind just saying a little more about what that means?
I'd have to find it again.
Okay.
I'd have to find it again because I was not totally familiar with the expression. Peter, I'm not going to find it.
Okay. We'll come back to it.
I know which part you're talking about. I'm sorry. If I find it, I can email you. I'm wondering if I can paraphrase it, but I don't think I can. Did anybody have any thoughts about what Peter was asking about? Interdependence. I like the tangerine example because he was teaching the children what being awake in this moment is, what that means with regard to eating a tangerine. As Steve has pointed out, do you want to know what orange juice tastes like? You can't describe the taste of orange juice. You can only drink the orange juice. And you can drink it in such a way that you and the orange juice are inseparable. And I think what the Buddha was also teaching the children, because it goes on, and I didn't have time, it goes on to talk about how do you eat a tangerine unmindfully? And he talked about the many ways in which we distract ourselves from what it is we're doing right here, right now. And it's not a judgmental, he was just pointing it out to the children. And the children their minds are not cluttered enough to get confused, you know what I mean? They haven't filled their minds full of this stuff we adults have our minds full of. And so I think they could see what the Buddha was pointing to. But I also think what that points to is the tangerine is real in a way that it wouldn't otherwise be real. And in that way, we are real as well. And that's what the path of the deathless is. Am I pointing to the right thing here? Want to comment? Okay. Anything else? It is. He is quite a storyteller. I have not read this in years, and I was just stunned. I was just stunned. It resonates too because it was 2,500 years ago, but it's also what's going on right here and now. This is the path to liberation, regardless of time and space, regardless of where we are. Would you say? I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm really asking you a question. Okay. Old Path, White Clouds. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote it. It's a biography of the Buddha. When David picked it up from Barnes and Noble and brought it home, I thought, oh my God, what have I gotten into? But I really, and if it's not like the Flower Garland Sutra, thank God, which nearly killed me. But it's a lot more accessible.
It's the size of Moby Dick that seems quite a bit different.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever read Moby Dick. Was he swallowed by the whale?
I won't be.
You know, you have a habit of doing that with other novels that I haven't read. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you.